There is a special kind of magic to play in survival games, or at the very least, games with a subtle emphasis on resource management and scavenging in order to have a fighting chance against a hostile environment. It also takes talent to take what made a good game and not only keep the magic, but also improve upon it in a sequel. After all, the best sequels are the ones that don't make you yearn for the previous entry. It goes without saying, but Metro 2033 is an underrated classic. Although on paper it was a linear military shooter, the sum of its parts was so well crafted that the shootouts against human enemies became only one part of a much bigger and better picture. One where the world around you is equal parts hostile towards you, but also acknowledge your player character as part of his universe, as opposed to being a glorified first-person camera. So it's only natural that Metro Last Light will pick up after it, and also maintain that level of magic that made the previous game just as atmospheric, terrifying, and fantastic. Metro Last Light takes place sometime after the events of Metro 2033. Once again, we take control of Artyom, a young man who, with the help of the Stalkers and some nukes, put an end to a series of anomalies in the Metro. Word comes out that a Dark One, a creature from the previous game, was sighted, and it's up to Artyom and his partner Anna to either capture or kill it. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. Because the mission goes wrong almost immediately and Artyom finds himself captured, now he has to travel through the Metro once more to capture the Dark One and quickly report back to the Order, and warn them of a nasty war that might be brewing in the dark Russian tunnels. At its core, the game plays just like 2033, or to be more specific, like its remake, Metro Redux. Artyom has a limited set of tools at his disposal in order to complete his mission, with an even bigger focus on stealth and exploration, both in the tunnels of the Metro and its stations, and the radiation-infested surface. But let's go over them in the right order. Despite being a rather linear game in terms of level design, there is a surprising amount of depth to the gameplay. At its core, the game sets your enemy encounters up as stealth challenges that you can either follow through, or you can just get spotted immediately and engage in a full gunfight with the human enemies. In order to make the stealth a lot more enjoyable and far more doable, the game added the option to perform a takedown on human enemies. It can be either lethal or non-lethal, with the added detail of the sound of Artyom getting his knife out as you decide how you're gonna put the enemy down. This is important because now more than ever the game makes killing human enemies play into the hidden morality system. More on that later. If you don't feel like doing stealth at close quarters, the game has options to get silenced weapons to hunt down everyone without much retaliation. But if ultimately you don't manage to pull off the stealth, you can just shoot people in the face. But even that is not as simple, because once again, while there is regenerating health, it may not regenerate fast enough. Also, enemies can take more punishment this time around depending on the difficulty level, so making every shot count is important. You can scavenge ammo from your enemies, but they may not drop enough to make up for the bullets you spend. So this makes you shoot smart and with strategy rather than just mindlessly emptying your clips. And you may want to conserve your ammo with human enemies, because once you are in the more confined Metro tunnels or exploring the surface, you have to defend yourself against mutants. Once again, mutant enemies do not drop ammo or medkits, so much like with the human enemies, every shot counts. There's even segments where it's actually possible to sneak past mutants, so you have an even better chance at defending yourself later on. Even then, that is not much of a problem because this game is fantastically paced, and that is the true trick to making survival mechanics like resource and inventory management work. Your ammo goes low enough for you so when you get to the next station or the next safe zone, you can continue scavenging for resources to replenish. You will have moments of quiet time either exploring the populated metro stations or simply exploring the world itself, and the exploration in this game is greatly rewarding. This is great because it means you are not going to find yourself in a segment that is going to overstay its welcome. Every major segment ends just at the right time, so the next one gives you time to digest what you just went through. It's those moments of quiet time that really enhance the experience, because it makes sure no gameplay or story segment overstay their welcome. Now, while this game has quiet time and is a stealth-based military shooter to a certain extent, it is also a horror-based post-apocalyptic game. In this world that got ravaged by nuclear warfare, all the violence from said war and the factions of the Metro killing each other do not come without consequences. There is a supernatural element to this universe. Once the bullets are not flying anymore and the last corpse has been laid to rest, it's possible for Artyom to find echoes of the past. Souls of those who died in the nuclear war, or unfortunate travelers who got killed in the tunnels either by bandits or by mutants. Still trapped in the tunnels, supernatural forces are at work, and they serve as a nice reminder of how Artyom, and by extension the remaining people of the Metro, are far more minuscule in this big, scary world. But thankfully, you do not get 100% overwhelmed by the oppressive atmosphere. Every once in a while you come across one of the few populated stations and settlements, and they are such a breather. While these places are far from big, they add a great glimpse into the post-apocalyptic society, and this time around they had greatly expanded from what was shown in 2033. Humanity has to do more than simply staying alive in order to survive. While you are stuck underground, you want to make the most of it. So you can spend quality time entertaining children and teaching them about the old world. You can be a fisherman and get mutant food for a living. You can do business selling to passerbys in the market. Or you can be a man of culture and watch a show. The more enjoyable part is that this has an effect of you as a player. It reminds you that not everything is hostile out there. It helps you recharge your mental batteries for when you make it to the next segment of your journey, and it feels great really. Now, with this being a sequel where stakes are increasing, so does the danger. Time does not go in vain for neither the humans or the mutants. Like I said earlier, major factions in the game are preparing for a war, and thus, Artyom is in a race against the clock to secure the Dark One and defend his people from the incoming conflict. But even the mutants are not going to make this easier. There are new types of mutants that have claimed territory for themselves, and some of those mutants have now grown stronger and deadlier, and thus, this game introduces boss fights. There's only a handful of them, but if regular enemies made every shot count, bosses push this to the next level. It is those moments that make you thankful to have conserved your ammo and your medkits, and also put your movement skills to the test while you try not to get horrifically killed by these beasts. It's pure adrenaline, and while some of these enemies can be a bit bullet spongy and some others are just plain set pieces, they do their job quite well at spicing up the journey. But this is a Metro game. The journey is more than simply making it to your objective and ensure the survival of humanity. What you do in this game can and will play a part on how your journey will end. Once again, what kind of protagonist Artyom is depends greatly on the player. Do you go out of your way to return the prized teddy bear to a sad child? Do you listen to the former actor lament on how superficial entertainment has become and how little true art has managed to survive? Do you give money to the less fortunate to give them a bit of hope to their lives? Do you know when you have to kill in self-defense and when it's more appropriate to show mercy? What kind of example do you wish to set for a child accompanying you? Questions like that are subtly presented to you, and the majority of the time you may not even realize you're answering them. This makes whichever ending you get have more impact and meaning, as it was your actions that led you to where you are, and in turn, they help flesh out Artyom as a character. Not that Artyom needs much help on that end. While he is still a silent protagonist, and I wish developers stopped doing that for their player characters, we still get to see what's going on in Artyom's head through his diary entries, but at the beginning of every chapter, and in the collectible pages you can find along the way. It's not much, but it's far more character shown than what happens with other shooters. One more fun detail I nearly forgot to mention is that this game has a wealth of gameplay. Artyom's journey is not the only one you can have. Because this is the reduced version of Last Light, all the DLCs that came out for it are available, and they are all pretty great, even if a little short. You can play from the perspective of multiple people from different points in the time of the main story. You can play as Anna, as the two of you got separated at the start of the game, fending off enemy soldiers and other mutants. You can play as Pavel, as he's journeying to Venice and dealing with a gang of bandits while Artyom is racing to catch up on him. You can play as Ullman, having a little supernatural journey with Khan, and reliving some rather painful memories for the latter. You can play as a member of a sniper team on your way to sabotage a power plant for the Red Army. You can be a heavy soldier using a minigun and other heavy weapons to fend off waves after waves of Red Army soldiers. You can be a stalker trying to escape a bunker infested with mutant spiders with even more limited resources and very little chances of survival. And the list just goes on and on. There is even a full-blown Metroidvania level where you need to manage your resources and scavenge for treasures that can take up hours and multiple sessions to complete. Or you can just visit the developer museum and mess around with the combat simulator, or try your luck at a super hard or very long survival mode. There is a lot of love put into this game, and I am glad they were successful enough to turn this franchise into a trilogy. I can only imagine how great Metro Exodus is if the sheer amount of good content in this game is an indication of anything. Of course, not everything is perfect. While I praise the stealth system, it sadly doesn't leave too much room for error. Enemies stay permanently aggro if you make too much noise or a corpse is detected, and reloading a checkpoint to try again can get a bit annoying since some segments require certain scripted moments to happen before you have a chance to start sneaking through enemy territory. And again, I also wish Artyom could speak more. The compromises made to let him show character are great, and I understand developers make silent protagonists to help with immersion and not distract players too much, but this kinda beats the purpose when you are going to find yourself stuck in one-way conversations and your character is supposed to be acknowledged as part of the game world. Still, despite minor flaws, Metro Last Light is a fantastic follow-up to 2033. It continues the post-apocalyptic saga quite well, and it shows us how much Artyom has developed since the last game. This is also one of my favorite game worlds I had the pleasure to play through, and you can bet I will revisit this game again in the future. This is why I am more than happy to give this game a well-deserved 9 out of 10. It's almost perfect, and that is great enough for me to have a grand old time. I enjoy a lot of action games, and of course I have a lot of fun playing as a one-man army laying waste to my enemies. But sometimes, it's good to have games where you are reminded of how vulnerable you really are, and how surviving by using your head and managing your limited resources properly can give you just as much fun and excitement. Besides, a little change of pace always goes well. It's never good to play always the same kind of games all the time, because you risk some nasty burnout. So changing things around spices things up and makes gaming be the variety-filled hobby that it's always been.